Yes, you can't mess it. Yes, you can't mess it.
What's up guys, it's John at LiquidHaus. This week's video took a good amount of work. My buddy Brandon gave me a system last Thursday and I completely tore it apart and I only finished up on Tuesday. The beginning of this video is actually going to be a little bit in depth about the parts that I used and then just a montage of me building the system. So I hope you guys enjoy. So let's take a look at the CPU block. This is a Watercool Heatkiller 4 Pro. I've actually already taken it out of the box because I was mocking up the tube bending. This is why there's fittings on it currently. But I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a insight on how this block looks by itself. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. I love this thing. This is the Pro version, so the Pro version actually has the nickel and the acrylic, as well as nickel and copper. The basic version comes in acetal, which actually performs better in terms of flow per Extreme Rigs back in 2015, and this block actually performed in the 3rd place on Extreme Rigs when they did the CPU water block roundup. So this is a great performer. I'm really happy with how this thing looks. In my opinion, it's the best looking CPU block I've ever seen in my life. I'd like to get my hands on one of these for myself when I build a Ryzen build to upgrade my current system. My X79 is just not cutting it anymore, especially when I'm rendering these videos. And the manual that they give you in the box is actually really informative if you're a beginner and you haven't really mounted a CPU block before. This is really helpful. I don't really use these much anymore just because I've done pretty much every water block installation you can think of. And they're pretty much all the same in terms of how they're initially installed and stuff like that. Heatkiller also gives you mounting hardware for all the Intel sockets, as long as you're buying an Intel variant for this block, of course. They give you all the mounting hardware required that you would need. Luckily, X99 already has a bracket pre-installed in the motherboard, so I just use these right here. Heatkiller didn't really necessitate the need for a backplate on Intel's other motherboards with sockets 115X, which I think, in my opinion, is a good thing, but you can also buy a backplate separately if you feel the need for one. So in my opinion, this block is absolutely gorgeous. But if you were to just look at it by itself, I'm sure that most people would agree with me that this block is striking in its appearance. Performance is striking as well. I'm really happy with how this block does, and I'm excited to put this in the system. So let's move on. So let's take a look at the reservoir that I'm going to be using for this system. This is the Heatkiller tube by Watercool, and like most things in their Heatkiller line, it's very aesthetically pleasing to the eye. This is their DDC version that I'm going to be using with an Alpha Cool Lang DDC 310. You take off this bottom plate and then slide in the DDC pump into the bottom. I do have the fittings on it already, but that's because I was also mocking up everything in the system, so the reservoir needed to be placed in there. The tube itself for the reservoir is borosilicate glass, which is very fancy in my opinion. Honestly, the favorite thing about this entire reservoir for myself is the top. It's just a quick release, twist off. It doesn't require any fittings whatsoever. It's very clean, it's very simple, very elegant. I love this feature. And this is actually what made me want the reservoir more so than anything else currently out. In this system, it's going to actually be mounted sideways, pretty much how it is sitting right now. Heatkiller provides a variety of different mounting solutions for this. You can either mount a 140 or 120 millimeter bracket to these right here. You can mount it onto a fan or a radiator, so mount it vertically or horizontally. Or you can mount it to the back with these two holes right here and have it stand vertically so it kind of looks like it's hovering. I went with that bracket, but I'm mounting it sideways into the case, so you won't really see the bracket much, which is kind of what I want because I want the reservoir to look like it's basically floating. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. I'm really happy with how it looks. This is the first time I've actually seen one in person. I'm absolutely in love, and I would love to get my hands on one for my personal system. So I'd like to talk to you guys about the fittings I've been raving about on Instagram. These are the Monsoon V2 economy fittings, and to say that these fittings are innovative is an understatement. Now when you open up the box, you get this little tube scale that I like to call it. With this, you can figure out exactly what size O-rings to use that they supply you with whatever size tubing that you have. As you can see, mine sits down a little bit in between the purple and yellow, but I use the yellow because it creates a little bit tighter fit. Now, as well as the 2 O-rings that they provide you for each fitting for a double seal on the rigid tube, they also provide a chamfer type ring that goes into the top of this bit right here, and this will provide further stabilization once this locking collar is screwed on. Once this is screwed on, now I have not added any O-rings onto this, and that also creates a type of rigidity to these fittings. Now this is just with that chamfer installed. This is pretty sturdy. I mean, I can move the whole thing and this thing barely really moves. But with the dual O-rings, as well as this chamfer bit, the sturdiness of these tubes with these fittings is incredible. I've never seen a fitting create so much rigidity for a tube, because these rigid tubings can be a little finicky when you're moving around a system and you bump them. They're not as flexible like soft tubes, so they can't take much stress in terms of being moved around once they've already been secured. This is why I really like these fittings. Of course, what we're also looking at right now is the AlphaCool XT45 radiator that I have for this system. This is a 240 variant. I also got the AlphaCool UT60 radiator, which is in a 360mm form, and that will be going in the system as well. Hey guys, hope you liked the video. If you can, give me a like, subscribe, share the video if you can, or my channel. Give us a follow on Instagram. My tag is @liquid.house. And you can find us on Facebook as well as just LiquidHaus. I appreciate all the love, you guys. See you next time.